it's Kayla and welcome to a book tag. I know I haven't been around much lately since Booktubeathon ended, but I guess it's kind of like a tradition now that every time Booktubeathon ends I go into a reading slump / filming slump, so that's been fun. I just haven't really figured out what I wanted to create content-wise since Booktubeathon, but hey, I'm back and I did come up with something and I have an idea. Not my idea, but a great idea. Today I'm doing the Book Struggles tag, which was created by Sabine at Sabine's Book Nook. So I'll leave the link to her video in the description below. I wasn't tagged by anybody, but I was inspired to do this tag from Maddie and B over at Heartful of Books because I saw their video and I thought it was really fun, so I thought I'd do the tag too. And I was unfamiliar with Sabine's channel, so now that's really good to find another booktuber. It's always good, always learning, always enjoying other people. So yeah, let's get into the tag. And I will also leave Maddie and B's video in the description as well. Question number 1 is there a book / series that you spent way too much money on that you now regret? Looking back at the question, it was only book, but I had to put in a series because I'm not good at buying series in bulk and finishing them. I'm much better at buying a book in a series one at a time and then reading them as I go, because then I usually end up getting behind and not getting to the books much later. Examples being the Shatter Me series and the Legend series. I've only read the first book in both series but bought the rest and still haven't read them. But the book series that I'm going to pick today is the Delirium series by Lauren Oliver, because I've had this series for I don't know how many years now, probably 3 or more, which is bad. I've started Delirium, but I just couldn't get into it for some reason. I bought this series in bulk, and I still have not read or completed it. So maybe one of these days that'll happen. Let me know if you want me to get to that sooner rather than later. Question number 2 is a book you read when you were really tired, so it made reading very difficult. I couldn't really think of any books specifically that fit this description. Any that would come to mind probably were from like years ago, because I normally don't really read that late at night anymore. But the only thing that comes to mind right now is a more recent read, which was The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater, and I read this of winter last year over winter break during the school year. This was during the time of my Raven Boys obsession. I'm still in love with this series, don't get me wrong, but because I was so engrossed with it, because I got both The Dream Thieves and Blue Lily Blue at the same time, which was a circumstance in which buying the series in bulk helped me, because I was, again, like, so obsessed with this series that I did read it well into the night, and I probably got tired at some points within the book and forgot what I read the next day and had to reread it. So yeah, this fits the description of that question. Question number 3 is there a book or series that took you way too long to read? For the answer to this question, I'm going to say Sweep Volume 3 by Kate Tiernan. I read this book, or at least part of this book, during last year's Booktubeathon. I read this during my senior year of high school, and during the time I read 2/3 of the book, including the books The Calling and Changeling. Now, the Sweep series is a 15-book series, but it's split into 5 volumes, and so I read this volume, I read the first 2, and then it just took me way too long to read the others. Actually, I think I read this my junior year, come to think of it. I'm trying really hard to recall, but I know it took me a very long time to read the last book, Strife. And I read this for the Booktubeathon because each book is extremely short. It's no more than, I want to say, 150 pages, maybe 180 pages. The books are really short and easy to get through, so I thought, well, why not read Strife? I mean, it's there, and it fulfilled one of the challenges. The problem was, I forgot a lot of stuff that happened before, so I had to, like, wiki that stuff and figure out what was going on in the series before I read on, which I'll probably have to do again before I read the 4th volume, because again, I forgot a lot of stuff that happened, but I do remember that I love this series and I always forget why I don't continue on with it. I guess it's just because it's so long, but you know, I was on a streak there for a minute reading this series. I mean, I only have 2 books left, so see if I get to that anytime soon. Question number 4 is a new release you've been meaning to buy but haven't gotten around to it for whatever reason. And for this book, it was very obvious the choice I had to make. To answer this question, I'm going to go with This Savage Song by V.E. Schwab. I love Victoria Schwab, and I don't know why I haven't bought The Savage Song yet, honestly. I mean, it's been on my TBR or to buy list for the longest time. I just really haven't gotten around to going to the bookstore lately or buying any new books online or anything like that besides school books. But I have 4 Victoria Schwab books in my possession. I've read 2. I have read her archived series, or part of the series. I know there's a 3rd book coming out, but that's not going to be for a long time. It's probably going to be pushed back now. There's no real details on it yet because Victoria is working on other projects, which is fine, but I love the archived and the unbound, and to get a 3rd book would be marvelous, but I've heard such good things about the Savage Song, and it sounds so good. And I also have Vicious and A Darker Shade of Magic. I've had Vicious for, I think, a year now, and I just bought A Darker Shade of Magic. You might have known that if you watched one of my Day 7 vlog of Booktubeathon, when I used the book depository code. But I don't know, I think the next book I buy has to be The Savage Song because I've been wanting to read it so bad because it sounds amazing. Question number 5, there's a thumb there. The thumb counts as a finger. Question number 5 is there a book you made excuses to read? Immediately the first book that came to my mind was Divergent by Veronica Roth. I love this book. I read it, oh gosh, I want to say my sophomore year of high school. Freshman or sophomore? Summer of freshman, summer of sophomore. It's really a blur right now, but I remember reading Divergent. It was fairly new to the community of readers out there, and I just loved it so much. The problem was I read it during finals week of school when I had a lot of studying to do, but you know, the procrastinator I am, I'm like, no, Divergent, I have to read Divergent. It looks so good, and I flew through this in a day when I was supposed to be probably studying for like history or science or something, but I read this the whole day and I loved it so much, and it's the best book in the series. I mean, everybody knows that. You're not gonna find somebody that's gonna argue that, probably, maybe, but yeah, Divergent. It still holds near and dear to my heart, even though I've read it so long ago now. Question number 6 is a book or series you bought and did not like, so it felt like a waste of money. For this book, I immediately thought of The Leveler by Julia Durango. This book, okay? I had to pull this out of a box of books downstairs in my kitchen because I recently got rid of a bunch of books that I didn't want or wasn't gonna read anytime soon, and I haven't gotten rid of them yet, so I had to find this book, but here it is. Backstory on this book. I bought The Leveler when I was on a big Ready Player One high. Some of you know Ready Player One is my favorite book, and I love it so much, and this premise sounded very similar to that. I was in a very techie kind of vibe. I wanted something that was like video game related, and this was the trick. This is about a girl who's a bounty hunter who tries to find people within this game. I don't even remember what the game is called. It's kind of like the Oasis from Ready Player One, this virtual reality game, and basically just pick them up and drop them back home. I don't like bashing writers, but the writing style was just so juvenile and just not really well written at all. The world building just felt really forced and not really developed, and the romance, if you would call it that, was very insta-lovey and not well developed either, and I just didn't really like anything about this. I feel like the author was trying way too hard to make her female lead super badass when it just wasn't working. And of course, I love badass female leads, don't get me wrong, this just didn't feel too genuine. So I did regret buying this, so I'm gonna get rid of it. I'm gonna give it to charity, no worries, but yeah, what can you do? Question number 7 is there a book to movie or book to TV adaptation that you just thought was terrible? You didn't like it at all? And of course, the obvious answer I could choose is the Percy Jackson movies, more specifically Sea of Monsters, because, you know, let's not get into that. I mean, we all know why. So I wanted to go a little off the grid, also a well-known bad YA movie, and that has to be Beautiful Creatures by Kami Garcia and Margaret Stohl. I read the Beautiful Creatures series my freshman year of high school into my sophomore year of high school, and I remember it so well. I wed this book. I will marry this book, yes, because I love it so much. This was also another one where after I read Beautiful Creatures, I bought the rest of the series in bulk, and I actually read it because I loved it so much. Beautiful Creatures, again, one of these series that I kind of forget about, but I know I love them. But when I saw that movie, man, that movie, don't get me started. There are so many flaws with it. The cast was really good, don't get me wrong, but there were just pieces of information that were left out that were really important, and not to be a stickler for detail and sticking to the book, but I think in this case it was necessary. The last, I want to say 20 to 40 minutes of the movie was nothing like the book, and it made not a lot of sense either, and it just didn't mesh well, and I think it could have done a lot better, and it was really a shame because, again, I love this series, and some of the actors did like a fantastic job, and I just think that if they had maybe a different director or just somebody going in a different direction, that would have been good. But alas, that was not the case. And finally, question number 8. Oh, I got it right that time. I did a lot of outtakes. Question number 8 is a book that got you into a really big reading slump. Now, I have gotten into reading slumps time and time again. There are so many books that I could do for this, but the first book that comes to mind for me is Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare, and the reason for this is because I had gotten off a really big Shadowhunter high. I had read right before this Tales from Shadowhunter Academy. I was so immersed in this world and I loved it so much, and all I wanted was more and more Shadowhunters, more Emma, more Clary, more Tessa, more everybody, but I couldn't get that, so I was just looking for something to fill the hole that I needed because it was just so good to just find something that could compare, but it took me a while. I had to wait until The Raven King came out by Maggie Stiefvater, and so that quenched my thirst because, again, it was a last book in a series that I already loved. Just picking up something that you're familiar with is so much easier than trying to find a book or series to introduce you to a new world when it's so much easier to go into one that you are already know and are familiar with, and people get my gist. But Lady Midnight, nothing negative against Lady Midnight, I just couldn't find something that could compare to this beauty. You get me. I know you get me. Please let me know in the comments if you understand any of these struggles, these book struggles that you go through. I'm sure we can relate and compare. Also, question. As some of you know, I did a bookshelf tour last year around this time. Do you want a new tour? I have gotten some new books this past year, of course, but I don't think much has changed other than the organization of my books a little bit. So if you want to see a new bookshelf tour, if any of you want to see that, even one person, let me know in the comments down below and we can chit chat about it, and I'll probably post it sometime next week. Don't hold me to that because I will see you sooner rather than later, but maybe not soon enough. But I do love you and I'll talk to you soon. Bye! What is with me doing a different outro lately? I don't understand.